Reserve. The root of all our evil, it begins with the Federal Reserve. Hey, yeah, well, let's go back in time when everybody was so proud of America.
I'm Tommy Salmons. This is Year Zero. Today, I'm joined by a Twitter friend of mine, and probably yours too, the Chicken Whisperer. We talk about homesteading. We talk about all the stuff that we've learned, what we've been doing around our house to prepare ourselves in case there are food shortages, which looks like there very well could be. And, some of the hard lessons we've learned and, just how we're moving forward and the things that we have planned. I thought this was a fun conversation. It's nice to just kind of relax and have a good conversation about, what your plans are and what you're doing. So I think y'all get something out of this. I really enjoyed myself. I thought it was a lot of fun having this conversation. I certainly learned some things, and so I hope you will too. And I hope it motivates y'all and gives you at least a place to start if you haven't already started growing vegetables or, raising chickens or whatever you want to do. That it gives you a place to start, and because that's really what you have to do. You just have to start, and you start learning things, and you figure things out, and it's not an easy process, and as you will find out, he and I have made some mistakes ourselves, so it's just part of it. That's the way it goes. That's how you learn. Well, as always, RyanBunting.com. For all of your graphic design needs, go to RyanBunting.com. Ryan Bunting is a great libertarian and a great anarcho-capitalist. He's also a decent graphic designer. He designed my podcast logo, and he also started his own business. So if you're looking for a techie or a graphic designer, go to RyanBunting.com and tell RyanBunting.com that you heard about RyanBunting.com from me talking about RyanBunting.com. And don't forget, he's a racist. LibertarianInstitute.org is where you'll find this podcast, as if you didn't already know that. Patrick McFarland's Liberty Weekly, Kyle Anzalone, Conflict of Interest, Keith Knight, Don't Tread on Anyone, and The Scott Horton Show. You also find a lot of great writers, Connor Freeman, Sheldon Richman, Kim Robinson. Sometimes we'll publish Ryan McMakin, and we have we've been known to publish some Jim Bovard and a lot of great writers. So go to libertarianinstitute.org to keep up with all of the stuff that's going on and get the libertarian perspective on the news and the world around you at the libertarianinstitute.org. Sorry, I just finished my coffee and my saliva is super thick this morning. So, it's, well, that's the end of the intro, isn't it? Whoa. Thank you, Tom Burton, for the music. Enjoy the show. All right, we are recording. I am here with the Chicken Whisperer from Twitter. Is that what you want me to call you, man? The Chicken Whisperer?
Yeah, man. Chicken's good. Yeah, that's fine. I kind of adopted the nickname now.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so
yeah, even in the neighborhood, Chicken Man is what it is.
Chicken Man.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that you and I have in common is we're both raising chickens and we're both gardening, and we're trying to fortify our own lives in order to not be subjected. We're trying to insulate ourselves as much as we can from being subjected to the inflation and the tyranny. And so I know for me, it was always kind of in the back of my mind. I watched my dad when he lived on the property I'm on now, and I was watching what he was doing, and I was like, wow, that's really cool, because he's producing so much of his own stuff, and doing it, and the food is so much better. He had chickens and all that, so I was I just kind of like, well, I'm just going to take what he was doing and I'm going to take it to another level and just
Yeah.
try to turn this whole property into production of some sort. And so, I mean, I'm not even a quarter of the way where I want to be. You know, I'm constantly working. So, um, what, how did you end up in this lifestyle doing these things?
Oh, in the craziest way possible. I guess. So Trump. so so Trump, right? Well, there's a lot having to do with that situation that came about that I just noticed that was next level, like way next level. And I had been political on and off since really Ron Paul, maybe even a little before him. And when I, of course, what they did to him. So after that, it was kind of like, you get a lot of apathy. So I just buried everything into business, and I was in Colorado, and I was in the cannabis industry out there, and I was a consultant, and had my own business and was doing quite well. And when Trump came along, I was like, dude, this is going to be great. This is going to be awesome. And I was pro Trump right from the start, man. And you know what? That was not the thing to do. And, and so all of my friends, right? I was in the cannabis industry. Well, what do you think? So I'm sitting there, and they're a bunch of mostly Bernie people. I had a few clients that were, the devil lady supporters, but we didn't speak much about that. We avoided that as much as we could for a time. But me and the Bernie bros, we chat about it. We'd be like, well, there's this and this. Trump was populist and Bernie socialist, but there's a lot of issues that they ran into that were problems they both identified, but solutions that were wildly different. So, you could negotiate and talk with those guys for a while. But, dude, it wasn't. After he won the primaries, my business took a hit. I mean, like, so drastically. I lost like 30% of my business in just a matter of a month or so. And it got real strange in Colorado. And I started to relook at things, and I was like, well, this might not work out well. Like, there was a wholeness to it that would take way too long to get into. But what ended up happening was I gave up all of my business, and I bought a piece of property out in Arizona, and I took me, my wife, my kids, my dog, and actually a couple buddies and my mom, and we went all the way out to Arizona, dude. When I got there, so, you buy a piece of property off the internet. Funny thing happens when that happens. It's not exactly what you thought it was going to be.
Oh, man.
So, yeah. So, drove out, and it was just a big plot of dirt with some weeds that were like tall as the car that you could call a tree, but wasn't really. And, my RV blew up on the way, and I had that thing fitted with some solar. I had the whole inside redone. And, dude, they wanted more than I could pay to tow it because I gave up everything to get where I was, and I had like $1,000 left, and it was a bad time. It was wild, dude. It was all for spiritual stuff, man. It was all very spiritually awakening times. And out there, man, it got to be like you had to figure it out, like real self-sufficient. Like we had a water, we had the water cube where we had to haul our water. We had to figure out power. So, boy, you better believe I figured out some solar. Got campers, got everything going, and got it moving. And I watched everything degenerate, socially from a distance there. We were outside of the bubble where we were, it was, everybody carried a gun. Everybody was, we were civil because we were in the middle of nowhere, and you better be civil because if you ever had a problem, you're going to want that person, a mile down the road to help get you to the hospital.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, it called for civility. But it was so out there, bro. It was like way farther than we wanted to get, even though we saw everything coming down like we thought. And you know, it's crazy that the whole time was wild, actually. When you won, I was like, you know, there's some things that's fixing to happen that are going to be like, conservatives are going to think they don't need to buy guns, but they need to buy more guns than ever. People are going to think they don't need to store, they need to store more than ever. And because I knew we were going to have a prosperous time coming around, because I knew that's what would happen with his economic plan. On more than just the fact that it was like he knew what he was doing, but the fact of what he planned on reversing, I knew would be a positive for the entirety of the economy.
Right.
So I expected it to grow. So I knew there was going to be a good time, but I also knew the backlash was going to be severe. Because it's like, here's what happened with Trump. You watched all the people that had pretended to hate each other for years and pretended to be on opposite teams for years literally come together like they had never been against each other to stand against Trump, which by all purpose should have been P.T. Barnum and nothing to really worry about. Mm-hmm. By everything you saw in appearance, he was supposed to be a buffoon. How could he obviously screw up 50, 60 years of inner workings and plannings, la da. But here we are today. And so it just, it's got a lot of spiritual aspects to it that I'm leaving out. But yeah, it all pointed to, you better be ready, because this time was almost easy to see coming. Because like, you're dealing with people that would rather burn down the house than turn over the keys. Yeah. If that makes sense. You know what I mean? They'll rule over ashes and they'll feel justified for it. Yeah. So that's the political reason of why I'm self-sufficient, to be quite frank.
Well, and all right. So you said you figured out solar. Like, what was that process like? How did you come about that?
Oh, dude, that was wild. Like, getting panels, and so this was, years ago, and I'd look up stuff on the internet, and God bless Pinterest, dude. Cause I need pictures. So like, so many pictures, dude. And like wiring. Luckily, I never blew a controller. I mean, I've had real blessings on the fact. And also I do have to add this in. So in the midst of hooking up my solar, I had gotten panels, I had gotten batteries, and then I got scared because I didn't want to hurt everything I just invested in, because we didn't have much to invest in it. Mm-hmm. And so when it came to the hooking up part, I started asking a bunch of everybody around me, who knows what do you know? I was just blessed actually to know a guy named John, and he was this old cat, been a missionary for 20 years. He was in, where was Nicaragua, because he was there when they were running guns through there. Oh, and that's a wild story. Yeah, he was a dope dude. He was a dope old cat, man. You find them old hippie cats that do crazy wild things because they didn't really care about their life until later. Mm-hmm. And so they put themselves in precarious positions. Mm-hmm. They got the best stories. But he helped me kind of rig it up. He was too old to do anything but that's all I needed to do. Put that there, drag this here. This is the size cord you want for this much distance. That kind of knowledge was like, I mean, I didn't know. You almost couldn't have looked that up the right way, So I was blessed.
Well, that's pretty cool. Like, because I've thought about doing some stuff with solar out here, because we have like 9-month-long summers in Texas. So I'm like, well, I could probably do some stuff, but I'm always like, I don't know. I'm just hesitant. I'm like, should I be looking to buy solar panels? Should I be looking to like build solar panels? Like, I don't even know how I should go about it, and how to really effectively do it the way I want to.
Well,
did I lose you? Uh-oh.
Bro, you broke up for a second.
Oh, I was just saying, I don't know.
Yeah, there you are. Okay,
I don't
there
know
you
how
are.
to. I don't know how to effectively approach the solar panels.
All right. Well, there's a couple of ways to look at it. First thing I would ask you is, do you have access to running creek water on your property?
No.
Okay. Well, then yeah, definitely some solar would be it. And then it's about like how much solar necessarily would you need? So they're going to do communication, even if everything came down, getting communication back up. You saw how Elon deployed Skylink, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
So like people are going to be on top of getting some kind of communications together, whether it be nefarious people or not.
Mm.
So if you're looking at it like that, and if you're going to connect to that information source at all, then, you know, you want your basic power to run your lights, to charge devices, basically. That's really what I would focus on. Like, and then you're going to have to look at, this is what I would look at. How do you cool without power, and how do you heat without power? When it comes to the refrigerator, there's two ways to approach it. You can get enough solar, which ain't cheap, to power a fridge, which ain't cheap. But if you could manage the fridge in a different way, say you went down to an old scrapyard and looked for some old RVs that still had their propane fridge, you know, their half propane, half power fridge, throw one of those somewhere in the back and keep some propane cans laying around, dude. And that's going to do you, because it's not going to quit. Everybody's under the impression that, like, if it goes, like, I don't know, even if it, let's just say worst case scenario, and there was a few bombs dropped, like, unless it's wiped out everybody and the world's over, and then it don't fucking matter no way.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it probably ain't going to be that. What it's probably going to be is all of the processes fall apart. But listen, power, we're not going to go without power. Anybody in charge, their first goal is going to be to turn back on some kind of power. So power is negligible to short-term existence, kind of keeping yourself from going crazy, being able to, like, maybe plug in crock pots, things like that. You know, fans here and there. That's what I lived in, the middle of the Arizona desert, and we survived without air conditioners with fans. And solar. So it's like it can be done.
Yeah. And so when did you buy pre-existing panels, or did you build your own panels?
Oh, dude, I bought them used.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, dude, they're out there and they're not in bad shape. And there's people that went on the journey of trying to be solar dealers and failed at life and still have excess stock. And so, I mean, they're out there, the deals. I don't think I've ever paid full. That's not true. One time I paid full price for a 100-watt solar panel once.
Oh, okay.
And it didn't really, it wasn't flashy enough to make me not go to used sources again. So
makes sense. Whenever,
yeah, I'm sitting on about 400 watts right now. So
yeah. And do you power your entire home through solar?
Oh no, dude, that's just totally for backup. I'm hooked up to the grid. That's just my power. That's just in case power.
Oh, okay.
That's out there with the chicken coop and the shed. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's just my power. That's like anything. All else fails, we got solar.
Right.
When we first got here to this place, the post that the electric was on, it looked, man, it was so rotted at the bottom, looked like a beaver done tore it up. And they were like, no chance we're turning that shit on. And so it took me 2 weeks to get a new post in, get the permit, get the power turned on. And that whole time we had solar pretty much for the kids' entertainment and shit like that. You know? Yeah. Couldn't cook off of it, but we use propane anyways to cook. Like we use a lot of propane, and we just keep extra tanks around for just in case. I know that that's going to become an issue eventually. But since natural gas is the most abundant resource we have access to in Florida, and 95% of the states run on it, they're going to keep it. They're going to have a source for it, no doubt, no matter how expensive it is.
How did you end up in Florida from Arizona?
By way of Tennessee. Hey, you want to smoke this joint? So we were out there, like I said, it was out there, and it was more out there than we wanted to be. And I got offered $22.50 in Tennessee an hour because I run low voltage, and so it bolstered my resume and took what I knew and ran with it. And they started letting me run wire. And as long as that's what I had to do, run wire, I was very good at that. I could put wire pretty much anywhere. So that worked out pretty good for a while. But I got a bum shoulder, and it had been bad for about a decade. And it fell out of place while I was asleep at 4 o'clock in the morning. We don't know what happened. And so I woke up and I was like, shit, Rosie. And my arm just like, and it was like the horriblest thing ever. And then it was funny too, because it dislocated, like, it was the second worst dislocation I'd ever had. And the very first one was the worst one. But after that, it was all just like standard, fell out every once in a while. But this was like crazy, like traumatized, but I was asleep. So I don't even know what the hell happened. It had never happened like that. So, but when they went to go put my arm back in, she wasn't very good at it. It was the first time, and I'm not trying to be sexist in this moment, but I'm going to be, I guess, because I will never let a woman put any of my dislocated parts back into place ever again. And it was the first time I allowed one to do so, and she promptly took it from the front dislocation, because it was always a front dislocation, and she put it all the way and dislocated it in the back, which was the very first time that had happened. And in the process of that, I had this thing called a Hill-Sachs fracture. And it was this little chip of bone that used to hold my shoulder in place that my doctor had told me about years ago, but I didn't have the $27,000 to do anything about it. So she broke that. And so she broke that little piece of bone and put my arm in the back. It was a very painful moment in my life. I yelled very loudly, and that sucked. That was a bad day. And so that took me out the game for a year. Like my arm looked like it was trapped in a concentration camp. I lost, oh my God, I lost like 6 pounds of just muscle out of that arm, and I couldn't even lift like a 5-gallon thing of milk. So of course I lost my job. And the first surgeon, they looked at it and they said, no, it was too complicated. They weren't going to touch it. The second surgeon almost turned me down, but he kicked it up to the best surgeon in their department, and that guy took it. So he rebuilt my shoulder, which was really cool. And now I got like 96% movement, which is great. I can swim again. First time I've been able to swim in a decade.
Oh, wow. So
yeah, dude, it sucked. My life, the arm thing really sucked as a part of my life. That was no fun. But now that's over, so that's cool. But I had to find a new job. That was basically how that happened. And I started working for this cleaning company because they told me I couldn't run wire or do anything like that anymore. I would just be back in there for a new surgery very soon because I would wear it all out. So don't ever do that shit. And so, okay, cool. So I found this cleaning restaurant crap, and it was in the middle of the night, and it was great. And they said that there was a chance I could get a $3,400 contract if I could move to Florida to work in Daytona. I just happened to have a buddy whose wife, it was her dad's place, and he died, and she couldn't even stand to be here. And it was this little, just crappy trailer, just falling apart. And so they gave it to me on a deal that is, I can't even tell you how good it was, because I mean, it was just that good. And I don't even know. I don't think we owe like 13 grand total to pay off the place now. So it's like nothing. But no, it's just that good. And we're in Florida, and it happened 2 weeks before the Corona apocalypse, dude.
Oh, damn.
Which, after that, we lost everything. But I took all that knowledge from Arizona and all that prepper understanding, and the goal was to get it done here anyways. And that's what we did. So like from day one, it was tear out the front yard, put in garden beds, start shit growing, get some chickens. I mean, and that was pretty much right away. The first month we were doing that. By the second month we had the chickens and I had coops built and we were figuring it out. I mean, it was like, you could just see it more and more coming. And then, like, again, there's a spiritual aspect of it that I could talk about, that if you were into those kinds of things, then, it's quite clear. The boys are like, so what's the end of the age going to be like? And he's like, well, check out Daniel in the abomination of desolation standing in the holy place. And that's going to be about the time. But when you do that, right, and you read about that and you think about some of the things that says, and then you look at the parallels going on and you compare that with Revelations, and you're like, oh, shit. So it makes you want to plant something. I don't know if any of that made sense, but that's how it made me feel.
When you so y'all are out there in Florida, you're becoming as self-sufficient as possible, and it's something that a lot of people are intimidated by, is taking these steps of self-sufficiency. And what I've discovered is the majority of what I know I've learned by making mistakes, and nothing catastrophic. I didn't burn down a house or anything like that. So, I mean, I think I'm doing all right, but one of the things I've had an issue with, maybe you can help me with this, because it's one of the things I've been trying to figure out, is how to manage weeds between rows, right? And you can go out there and you pull weeds and you pull weeds and you pull weeds, and you'll spend 2-3 hours out there in a day just pulling weeds, sweating your ass off, and then you come back a week later and it's overtaken by weeds again. So
try baking soda.
Yeah.
Yeah, the straight powder. You put it right on the weeds. Now make sure you don't do that to your. Don't get it on your. Not straight powder. Never put straight baking soda powder on your plant. But you do use baking soda in care and maintenance of your plants. But yeah, a good organic weed killer is to put the baking soda right onto the weed. What was that process? You remember what the process was? What was the process? What did it do? I remember we were reading about it. And it's a lot. You could try straight soda to do it organic. I use mulch. I use a lot of mulch, dude. And like, sometimes the weeds will come through, but really it's just on the sides of the beds. And so
Right.
It's not as much. And dude, you just really mulch. Mulch is fantastic to mulch in between as much as possible. I love mulch. By like the 5th layer of mulch, it starts becoming dirt. You know what I mean? If you put mulch on and just restack it every year, a couple of times a year, and then by like year 3 to 5, you're gonna dig down. It's gonna be dirt, and that's really the best I would tell you about that. And the most organic. Otherwise, it's pull them.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. You can, in a circumstance like this, whenever you're fighting with weeds and you're dealing with things like that, you can just take dead leaves and you can mulch in between with dead leaves. And it's going to keep most of what's growing, and then it's going to compost itself. It's going to add nutrients into the soil, and it's going to become soil itself over time. So, I mean, in this, I think that's what the problem a lot of people have is they want a quick fix, and nothing that you and I are doing is quick.
No, there's no part of this that's ever going to be quick. And when they're like looking for all this, there's a lot of disillusionment that comes in it. This is because like everybody who thinks about this, all they think about is oh yeah, I'm going to have, this, and I'm going to be able to eat a salad every day, and I'll have fresh eggs, and they don't understand that there's disillusionment. Like the first time one of your chickens that you love gets egg bound and you have to help it on to its next purpose, then like, that's a moment, dude. The first time you sit there and you you thought you did everything right with the dirt, and you sowed the seeds and you watered, and like 3 sprouted out of like the whole pack, you know, and you're like, what the fuck did I do wrong? You know, the times like, with the ducks, you know, hell, I charged just $30 in water a couple of days ago because I changed out the duck water and I left the damn hose on, and then my neighbor come by while I was up front because it took a minute to fill back up the tub. And so I was out there talking to them, and then I realized I had to go get my wife, hopped in the car, rolled out. Dude, it was like 4 hours later. I'm like, oh, shit, the water. So it was like $30 a day. I mean, you're going to have moments like that where it's like you lose. I mean, but whatever. Nobody can teach you this. There's no book you can read. There's no class you can take. You got to get out there. You got to sweat the balls. You got to, you got to take it. You know, you got to deal with your losses and love your gains, and you will. You'll love them more. Like when the first strawberry managed to get through, like we held that thing up like it was made out of gold, man. Like the first one that didn't get eaten by a bug, a chicken didn't get ruined. We thought we done created a miracle, right? And you know, it's like it's those moments, dude, that are just. I don't know. It's weird to say it, but it's something you got to do if you want to free yourself from what it is around you. I mean, you have to. There's no other way around it. You have to learn these things.
My idea came to mind reading Thomas Jefferson, all right? Because he was all about the agrarian society. And he thought that was the only way to continue a free society was to avoid industrial society and continue an agrarian society. And so, like, and as I thought about it, and as I watched things happen, I was like, oh, I see what he's saying. Like, yeah, a lot of the things we have make life really convenient, but you're dependent on so many other people for those conveniences. That if you can at least figure out how to live inconveniently without those things. Like there are times where I'll put my phone down and I won't pick it up for, 8-9 hours. And so, but there's not a lot of people doing that. Most people are glued to that screen, glued to that phone. And it's like, no, I got shit to do. I'm producing, my chickens are producing probably 1.5, 2 dozen eggs a day. And I have a lot of eggs, but that's a lot of protein. That's a lot of protein if something goes wrong, like I do. I have.
No, I agree. Well, use them for your garden too. Do you do that? Do you ever use them for your garden?
The eggshells.
Like whenever no, dude, I like, no, because I got so many. I just take a whole batch, man. I'll take a dozen or so and just take them out, and I'll dig a trench at the bottom of it, and I'll crack them, you know what I'm saying? I'll throw the dirt, or I'll throw dirt right on top of them, then I'll walk across them, and then I'll crack them to let them. And what I want is I'm bringing bugs to that location underneath the soil. I'm trying to bring the bugs underneath the soil. And then I'm going to plant everything on top of that too. So it's like, it's like a precursor for an environment to attract the bugs before I get the dirt ready to receive them. And so it's like, I don't know, bait. But I've had some really great results. Matter of fact, one time I pre-dug this bed, and it was going to be, it's our medicinal wildflower bed. So it's not exactly edible, but you could eat some, but it's more medicinal. So for the oils. Right. And I pre-dug that bed out, and I put these eggs down there, and I got it all ready and everything. And I only put a couple bags of dirt down, and then something came up, and I went over to do. So like by the next week, in just the spot I put the eggs, there was already just weeds trying to grow back through all of that. And it was the only place I de-weeded all of it. And that was the only spot. And I was like, wow, that's some powerful juju. And so, I picked that up from one of the organic, like So fertilizer, right? Everybody needs to understand the importance of fertilizer and what that means.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
you have, you ever heard of Korean natural farming?
No.
Okay, that deals with lactose bacillus. And so that's, you take milk and you set it up and you do a process with it and it starts to separate. And so that's the lactose bacillus. And that's what I like to call microbeasties. And so that's your positive microbeasties, right? And so those are fantastic for your soil. And you kind of pretty much make it with sour milk, basically. So like, but that is a very potent, very good natural fertilizer that can be made with like goat's milk from your goat. So, and you don't need to spend on that. You just create that and you can feed that to your plants. And there's other like, so the goal set is true living organics. And that means you build your soil to a way that your microbeasties carry on, all your nutrient deliverance. And so like, those are the things people have to start working towards when it comes to growing in their land more, because commercialized fertilizers are for one, our access to them and the price of them are going to get more exorbitant for the home person. But two, that is what's killing our soil. That kills the good microbeasties and causes synthetic, and that's where you get salt cleating, and that's why, you know, a lot of times your dirt goes bad, you can't grow. It's because it's got too many total dissolved salts in it, and so you get a lot of cleaning. It's just bad for the environment, like of the plant, not necessarily. I'm sure it's no good for the rest of it, but you know, the plant.
And another thing people don't do, and it is something that I learned in just reading, is that you need to like let areas rest, right? Like you don't plant in the same area constantly. You have to let it rest. You have to let that, or you have to turn the soil over, and you have to introduce new organisms to the soil, because all these things it's living bacteria that's living within the soil that's giving this life to these plants. You have to continue to bring that life back into that soil.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a letting soil rest is super important, and that'd be the time actually. So like say you'd harvest and you pull it all out and you want that whole bed area to rest for like a season. So like what you're gonna do with that is after you harvest everything, you do like a good top layer scrape. Don't get too deep with it, but a good top layer scrape to get it all out. And then you would add like that lactose bacillus, and you would add your microbeasties in, and you would throw. So I like bone meal. I like steamed bone meal is good. I use this one company called Down to Earth because they're 100% organic. It's a lot of different kind of bones and residue from plants and things like that. So you start combining those things. You make compost teas. I don't know if you've been introduced to compost teas. They're amazing for plants, and they're like steroid shots. And so it's I don't know, man. The process for making your plants healthy is literally all around you. And the more synthetic things you use, the more you damage your soil over time and make it, right, like you said, where even a year's rest isn't going to do as much as you want it to unless you're willing to put more synthetics back into it, because you've killed off all the natural environment.
Yeah. When you're doing a compost, I have an old wheelbarrow that doesn't roll. Like the wheels are all cockeyed and it's just beat up and broken. So I just have compost in it, and I just threw a bunch of dirt and soil, like topsoil, in there, and then I just dump empty like old vegetables and scraps in there and just stir it up. And I use it. I don't use it constantly, but I use it to top off my topsoil. Like I'll just go in and I'll just sprinkle it around where I'm putting the plants to get those nutrients running through. And but that's something I'm really looking at, is how to create a bigger compost and what to do.
Oh, I got you. Oh yeah, dude. Does your municipality do the wood chip thing, like the free wood mulch, blah blah, they give out or anything like that?
Not that I'm aware of.
You should look into that. See if you can get free mulch from your municipality. And if you can do that, go get a couple trailers of that, make a pile of that, dude, and then start throwing your scraps on that. Like throw your extra little food scraps on that, and then let the chickens out to go scratch in it. And they'll mix up about 30%. You'll still want to turn it every once in a while with a pitchfork, a couple times a week, but just let your chickens, when you throw your vegetables and your cores and your stuff out there, let your chickens go out there. Let them eat it. Let them pick through it. Let them poop on it. Let them scratch it around. And that's going to do wonder for you. Like by next year, you'll have dirt. Like you do that, and then you can add some other things. Like every once in a while, I'll take a cup full, like my bone meal or something, and I'll go out there and I'll sprinkle it on it, and I'll turn it. And within a year, dude, you can have some good dirt. You get that mulch, you throw in some of your topsoil to get it good and started, some leaf mixture, let the chickens scratch on it, poop on it. You keep turning it. And that's going to do wonders for you to like take 30% of that and mix it with your topsoil for your overall bed. It's going to do wonders for it. So it's like, and that's it, dude.
When you're doing bone meal, what kind of bone are you using?
So it's can't find it. No worries. It's steamed bone meal and it's fish.
It's fish.
So it's like a fish meal.
Oh, okay.
Let me.
Well, what I'm thinking is like something like that. Like whether it's like depending on the type of bone, it might be something I can do on my own, where I won't have to buy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah, so like the Indians, and I learned it from the Indians, which is why this stuff, like everybody thinks that, I guess they figured, we folks came up with some chemical nutrient wonder, but no, man, it's the fish head technique from the Indians. Like that's basically all it is. So let's see, can you see?
Yeah.
Can you see that?
Yep.
Yeah, that's it right there. And see, it's just how it looks like salt, really. I mean, see?
Yeah, it's just ground up bone, yeah.
Yeah, and so I mean, really though, man, it totally. So the Indians, what they used to do, dude, is they would take a fish head and throw it underneath every seed. Like they would dig the hole, throw the fish head, a little bit of dirt, put the corn seed, cover it up, and that's how they grow their corn. And so it's basically like that. They steam it so it ain't got no, bioorganisms you don't want, or that could quote unquote possibly hurt your bed or bring something like rot, So,
yeah. So if
anyway,
I were gonna,
basically it's that.
if I were gonna do this, like let's say because I have a pond in the back that's I have fish in. And I'll go out there every once in a while and catch a fish and bring it in. We'll eat, like whatever. So like, would I debone the fish prior to cooking it, or could I take it after cooking it? Because I know Beatrix loves to cook the fish with the bones in because it adds flavor to the fish. So could I take the bones after the cooking process, pull them out, crush them down, boil them, and then do what I need to do with it?
Yeah, if you did that, if you pulled them out and boiled them, because you wouldn't want any of those salts soaking in them, you know what I'm saying, and stuff like that. But if you boiled them out and then dried them and then crushed them, yeah, you get a really nice meal. Then I'd also say take the fish heads and tails, and like any garden you got resting or any spot you ain't got nothing planted in, go down, dig down, 8-9 inches a foot, throw that shit in there and cover it back up and just let it go, and just leave it. And never let your fish heads go to waste. That's the thing. Never let your fish heads go to waste, because there's a lot of nutrients in the eyes and things like that. And so yeah, that's a good useful fertilizer is important.
That's interesting, because usually what I do with my fish heads and the fins and all the guts and all that stuff is I throw them back in the pond for like the turtles and the catfish to eat.
I mean, that's nice of you. I mean, I'm sure they really appreciate that. But I mean, if you want to put them to use, I mean, I love them too, and I totally understand that, dude. I give a lot of shit I shouldn't to my chickens because I love my chickens. I'm always giving them leftovers and crap. It's like, and beans and shit. I pick out the. But anyways, I get it. But if you wanted to put them to like use, yeah, man, use them in your garden, dude. That shit's so good for your garden. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. I'm gonna have to look into that. I'm gonna have to research that a little bit more and figure out how I can do that.
Oh, sure.
Because
yeah, dude. Like fish is great.
That's an interesting aspect. I got these because one of the coops I built is it's like 10 foot wide by 14 foot long.
Okay, yeah.
And it's like 8 foot tall, and it was just like this. What it was an old dog kennel, and I just repurposed it. And so,
right.
But because my property, the way my property is set up, like I don't have a lot of like level land. So what I did is instead of coming in and filling up under it, I built raised beds around it. And so I got all this like nice soil there that I've tried to plant stuff in, and I've grown a little bit of like cabbage and stuff like that, but it's because I keep my chickens in a fully shaded area under a couple of oak trees. I don't get a lot of sunlight there. So I'm having a lot of issues growing things there, but what my chickens like to go scratch in it and eat all the bugs out of it. And I realized basically what I've done is I've created a worm farm. So if I want to go fishing, I can just go dig in these raised beds that's around this chicken coop and just grab as many earthworms as I want out of there, and I'm good. I can go fish, So I've
absolutely
accidentally created a worm farm that I'm like, okay, there's utility for this, but I would still like to find something that I can grow there. So what I'm thinking about, because it's always shaded, and I'm thinking about trying to grow mushrooms in this area.
Oh yeah. I'm a aficionado of mushrooms myself. Not having grown any in the yard, mind you. But who knows? Maybe one day. But
not those kind of mushrooms. I was thinking about like like lion's head and shit like that. Lion's mane. Yeah.
Oh yes.
No, I save my shroom experiences for Childeberg, and so if you want to see me on shrooms, come to Childeberg.
Dude, I was highly against psychedelics for the longest time. I've always been a weed guy, forever, but like that was the extent of it. I don't drink, so I'm like, and I was like, no man, I can't be. Okay, so I've always been a drug dealer pretty much up until like recent, like that low voltage job. That was probably my second real job. Anyways, so with that situation, it becomes well, never mind. I'm gonna leave that alone. But mushrooms, they help me. They actually became a medicinal item. So, but anyways, it's like that. I've totally changed my mind, but only for medicinal purposes did I ever even touch them in my life. So I had cluster headaches, and so that was a recommendation, and there was a lot of pain, and they did change my life. I'm not gonna lie. So, but I never felt comfortable enough because there was violence. That's what I'll say. There was violence in my previous life, so I could never put myself in that kind of situation to not be of my head. Right. And later on, it became extremely painful to be alive. So somebody said you should try mushrooms because that works, and I didn't believe them. And I looked it up, and there was a lot of information on it that seemed like it might happen. So the first time I tried mushrooms was probably the greatest, happiest moment of my life, practically. So, yeah, now I'm a big fan of mushrooms.
So you're you're one of at least two people. I'd say you and my buddy Michael are basically homesteaders. Like I'm not. I have a job. I do what I can to produce what I can produce here at home, but I do not have the time that I would like to spend on my property. If I could spend all day on the property, I'd be in a lot better shape. But I have to have the money to do these things to transform this property into what I want it to be. And how many chickens do you have?
Oh, let's see. 12 girls, 4 boys, and 9 chicks.
Okay. So see, I have 20 hens and I cannot seem to come across a fucking cockerel to save my goddamn life. And it pisses me off.
Are you serious? I got so many boys. Dude, if you were so here, I'd give you one of my boys. I got good boys too, man. They're raised right. They're good to the girls. They know what the hell they're doing. They're good roosters. You want roosters?
Because I want to get a Rhode Island, at least 2 Rhode Island red fucking roosters, so I can breed Rhode Island reds. Because for me, they have been the best egg producers that I have. And I would also I'd also like to get a Cornish rooster, because as far as meat production goes, the Cornish are the best. They grow so fast. Within 3 months, you can start slaughtering them because they're already up to like 6 pounds.
They're a sickly. They can be a. It's kind of like one of them things. It's like if you got a good one, you got a real good one. But if it's a bad genetics, they can be health prone to problematic health problems. I'll tell you what though. If you were looking for a meat bird, have you ever heard of a Jersey Giant?
No.
Look into Jersey Giants.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm just going by what I can get here, and so like.
Are your chickens big?
Well, my Rhode Islands are probably about 4 pounds. They're not real big. But they, like I said, they lay like monsters. They're laying me. Yeah. They're laying me 5-6 eggs a day per bird. And then my Dominic, my Dominicers aren't huge. I'd say about 5-6 pounds. I have a Brahma, and she's probably about 5 pounds. I had I did have a Cornish, and she was a very good gumbo, and she was probably up over 10 pounds whenever I did slaughter her. She got so big she couldn't even roost, and it was starting to become winter. And it was like, okay, like, do I let this bird lay on the ground all day long by herself, or do I just fucking eat her? And so we just ended up eating her, because I was like, she's not doing any good. All she does is lay there. She doesn't lay any eggs. She doesn't do anything else. She's just this big fat ass. And, you know, she was a mess to clean. I mean, but like I said, I made a gumbo. I have like right now, I had bought 6 Cornish, and 2 of them died very young. They're only a few weeks old. And so I have 4 left, and then I have 4 ducks that I just bought. I'm going to be building a coop next to my pond. So because whenever I first had ducks back in the day, I had raised them with my chickens. And so they stayed in the same coop. They stayed in the same coop as my chickens. And then I was like, well, I want them on the pond. So I brought them out to the pond, and they kept running back to the coop. And they did that for a few days until my dogs started fucking chasing them around the yard. And then they were like, okay, we're not leaving the pond anymore. So they just stayed in the pond. And then I guess it was like about a month later, they both ended up gone, disappeared. And so I'm figuring like an owl or something got them at night when they were sleeping. So I figure if I set them up a coop, they'll go back to the coop. in the evenings like the chickens do, but they'll go hang out on the pond all day, during the day. And then when I have
don't let them start with the chickens though.
Yeah.
They get attached. That's why they kept running back. The chickens became their flock.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna put them in their own coop. I'm gonna put them in a coop for a month. I'm gonna leave them in that coop so they know like this is, they're nesting, and then I'll start letting them out to go hang out in the pond when they've developed feathers. And so I got 4 of them, and I'm wondering, I don't know what you know about ducks, but one of the things I was curious about is because I have a pond, we get ducks, like wild ducks, wood ducks and all that coming through in the fall. Are they going to fertilize the eggs? Are they going to fertilize the
There's a chance. I mean, there is a chance. You will have that chance if you do get visitors. If you get a flock that's like too big, like if you start getting too many ducks, they might skip over it. But if it's just a few ducks and it's a bigger flock, yeah, then you might come, get some visitor boys coming in like the military. So, you know what? With ducks, it's interesting. I'm not a fan of the Peking duck. I got another duck that was more acclimated to Florida. I forgot the name of it, but it was one that was more heat tolerant. And we got one Peking duck left, but boy, she's fat and she waddles and she's great. Don't get me wrong. Quackster's amazing. But yeah, health problems. Like I had to get rid of her bumblefoot, dude, which almost killed her. And the other one died of being egg bound and hemorrhaged. So, and that came down to like calcium, lots of calcium. If you add oyster shell to your mix for your girls.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and it was just, I was putting down, I got too many chickens. I was putting down the same amount of shells, and the other girls had grown up and where they started laying eggs. So I just wasn't putting enough. So the duck didn't get enough. And then, these things happen.
Well, I found that my chickens are eating eggshell as well, which is kind of funny. So Boogie, with his little badass, he likes to go into the coop and steal the eggs, and then he fucking brings them out, cracks them open, and he licks them all up, and he leaves the eggshell there, and then the chickens come through and they eat the shell. So I'm like, well, I guess it ain't bad for them. So
yeah,
it's not causing any issues. So I'm like, all right, whatever.
Well, I've read quite a few things that say grind them up and give them to them, like when you want to give them a calcium boost. So, like apparently it is supposed to be okay. You're not supposed to, like if it happens in the nesting box, then you're supposed to keep an eye on it because you got one of your girls throwing a tantrum or a fit, and she's cracking other girls' eggs and being an asshole and eating the yolks. And so
I've actually seen that because of the schedule. Because the schedule I keep for work is I don't get out there every day. Sometimes it's just it's dark when I leave and it's dark when I get home, and I'm like, okay, like I'll go get it tomorrow or the day after or whatever, or I'm off this day and I'll go get eggs. So I try to get out there at least 3 times a week, but to pick up eggs, but it's not an everyday thing all the time. And I have gone out there and seen a chicken like cracking an egg open, and I'm like, hey, what are you doing? You fucking genocidal bitch,
Just being an asshole. That's what they're doing. Hey man, chickens are assholes. Like I kid you not, man. They got their hierarchy thing is brutal.
So what are your plans going forward? What are you going to be doing here this year?
This year, like, okay, getting the milk and goat is like, it's up there. It's like, milk and goat or aquaponics setup. I'm not sure which one I'll be able to accomplish first, but one of those two are happening first. It depends on whichever one I can get my foot in the door on a direction. If I could find a good deal on a goat, which is actually harder than you think right now, then I'll probably go with the goat. But if not, I'm going to have to go with my aquaponics first, and we're going to have to save up some for a goat, because goat might cost $350, $400 by the point. You could have picked up a goat last year for like so cheap, dude. Now they're not playing. They know it's coming. So, yeah, goats getting to be more expensive all the time, actually. So I plan on
getting me at least 3 or 4 goats this year. I want to get at least one male and a few females, and I want to breed them so I constantly have goats, because I'm not going to lie, I love the taste of goat, and so I will eat these fuckers.
No, I totally get that. No, I totally get it. Matter of fact, it's like you want to run, one milking goat, and then, pretty much the rest meat goats as much as you can. It's like, I mean, that's what they're there for. But so I want the milking goat because, like, I'm learning how to do more things with the goat's milk, so to speak. So, and we're starting to, I'm going to go back into soap making, which I took up for a little while I was hurt, but I let it go and I started working, in the real world again.
Uh-huh.
Now that I'm back to being a hippie, then I'm probably going to take it back up. I've just been with the house. See, I homeschool the kids. So like my wife, the dynamic shifted when we lost everything because of the COVID apocalypse thing. And I lost my contract because it was a restaurant business. But anyways, so she started working. And so now she makes decent money. So I'm the stay-at-home dad who does the homeschool, takes care of the house, the chickens, the yard, and shit like that. So I'm that guy.
Yeah.
So,
Mr. Mom.
But, you know what? That's cool because you know why? Because I need to figure this shit out. Like, because I was not raised. I was raised somewhere between like Tarzan and Mowgli, half-assed, and nobody really cared. So nobody ever showed me anything. So I didn't know nothing. And like doing this and coming to this, like the first thing I ever grew in my life was pot. And that was literally the very first thing I ever grew in my life. And I just happened to be good at it. It was just by some miracle that happened to be something I was good at. And so with that carried me to Colorado, because where I was, those kind of line of work still got you a felon back in those days. And in Colorado, you could be a small business owner. So That's a whole different world.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's just what I did. And that's where I learned how to grow things. You know what? Vegetables are different than pot. That I can tell you. But I can also tell you, if you treat vegetables more like pot, then you're going to get better results out of your vegetables. This is absolute fact, hands down. I tried to treat them like vegetables, didn't do near as well as when I tried to treat them like pot. Really? Treating them like pot works a whole lot better. Oh, yeah. Love the soil, take care of the soil, be organic. Don't listen to their Miracle Grow 3-month fertilizer crap garbage junk. There's just treat it like pot, dude. Treat it like you love it. And I guess that's what it boils down to.
Have you noticed, I'm sure you buy like butter at the store still at this point. I used to buy, when I was driving over the road, there was a place I used to buy Beatrix and Amish butter from. And, it's hand churned, and I would get it. I'd buy her like a 2-pound block of it. It would last her like a month for a 2-pound block.
Yeah.
But once I came home and I was stopped driving over the road, I didn't have access to buy this butter anymore. So we started buying, like Land of Lakes and Challenge or whatever butter, we decided to use at the time, because she likes the stick butter. And so we would buy it. And what I've noticed here over the last couple of months is the quality of the butter is not what it was when I first came home last year in June. That if you're like, because when you like oil a pan, a lot of times you'll just take it like a little piece of butter, you'll throw it in there, you'll oil it. Well, it's blackening. It's getting black and charred on us now. It never used to do that.
Sure.
It used to just melt like real smoothly. So one of the things her and I were talking about the other day is like, well, we might have to start making our own butter because there's something going on with the butter. Have you seen this going on? Is this like moving you in any specific directions? Is it making any impact on your decision making going forward?
Oh, dude, I'm 100% food pilled. Like that, I screwed up and read this book by a guy they called. So the establishment calls him a fraud, which automatically wants to give, that makes me give him credibility.
Right.
But so I read a long time ago, dude. Like my oldest son, he's 20 now. I think he was like, I don't know, 3 then.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been on that whole rabbit hole red pill shit for longer than before the Matrix was on. So, before there was a red pill. So it's like, and I threw the microwave out the house. Oh shit. It's been 20 years. So just about 20 years practically. I threw it right out the door actually. And
we have a microwave that never gets used.
Yeah, throw that shit out. No, I mean, you're grown up, do what you want, but in my opinion, like microwaves are like fucking garbage. But
I think I use it like once every 6 months, just for like defrosting meat or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we gave up. We gave up that. I don't eat pork. I don't do fast food like hardly at all. We'll get things out, but we won't do the McDonald's and the Wendy's, and
right.
We don't do that. And but we gave that up a long time ago. My wife sadly still has a slight addiction to Coke, but other than that, no soda. So a lot of tea, coffee. But I tell you what, but I've got my vices though, right? Like before I ever got healthy, I started smoking cigarettes, and that's like the worst thing I do right now. But I do take, I smoke so much pot that I'm positive that if there is cancer, it's being defeated right now as we speak. That's the joy of pot.
All right. Well, hey, we've been going for over an hour easily. So, if somebody wants to get started doing this stuff, like what is your advice to them?
Oh, just do it. Like start growing. Like, I don't care if you're in the city, talk to your apartment, see if you can borrow the roof for a rooftop garden or a section for where you can put your garden pots. And like, even if you can't dig up the dirt, get you some pots, do some tomatoes and peppers first. They're kind of easy, but you got to learn. Like this is the time, and I'm not trying to be necessarily hyperbolic, but if you look at history, then all you're gonna understand is the future is not going to be near what we have today. So like, it might be the difference between enjoying life and not enjoying life, having that tomato sandwich from the house. So, that's really, people just got to understand that this is that point where you got to start doing something for you. Yeah. Look who we can't depend on. Everybody we trusted let us down. Everybody we trusted lied to us. Nobody knew what to do. That's another thing people got to look at. None of these people who had suits and that claimed to be working for our best interests knew what to do. When shit fell apart, they just watched it fall. And like the supply chain, the guy was off breastfeeding with his fake breast. So like, you can't count on none of those people. So that's really what it boils down to.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's that's kind of my thing is just start doing something and you'll learn. And as you learn, then you'll want to start doing more. Like one of the things we're going to be doing this year is we're going to plant some asparagus. Now it takes a couple of years for asparagus to produce, vegetable that you can eat, but you got to start the plant so that you have those couple of years that it does start producing, And I've tried and failed several times to plant fruit trees, and I'm gonna try again this year. You know, we
Yeah.
use a lot of lime and we use a lot of lemon, so I'm gonna get another this year again. I'm gonna get lemon and lime, and grow things that you use. Like if you use bay leaves, grow a bay tree. You know, like that. We have a mint plant. If anybody watched the video that I published earlier, that we have a mint plant that we've had that thing for 2 years. That thing, it's rocking and rolling. That thing never stops. I moved it to the greenhouse out there in the high tunnel because like a month ago, it started looking like it was getting a little wilty due to the cold weather. So I just moved it from the front porch into the fucking high tunnel, and it bounced right back. Understand that once you get these plants started, they're pretty resilient, and you can just kind of let them go at a certain point, but you got to get them started and you got to do the work to get them going.
Oh, absolutely. And then and if you're going to do the work, right, search around for perennials in your environment and focus on the perennials around you. You can start. And I would even say when you were get the things you like. Well, get the things like you like too, because there's a lot of plants that are cousins that you're not aware of because, it's not feasible for them to produce it on mainstream that you haven't really been introduced to that are literally cousins to stuff you love that taste very similar. So, and that's probably another thing I would look at so perennials are great because they keep coming back year after year. Those are your fruit, your berries, things like that. And your asparagus actually will come back for like 20 years once it's started. So
Yeah.
that's a perennial too. And so it's like, that's what you really want to focus on. Your perennials, get started any way you can, even in a pot. And when you were talking about you're struggling with your lemons and your lime, have you tried doing it in a pot instead of in the ground, but in a good sized pot?
No, usually usually I buy it in a pot. I let it get about 6 foot tall, and then I put it in the ground. That's usually what I do.
But don't hesitate to get a nice bigger size pot and do your lemon and your lime tree specific to that environment, because it'll keep it size dependent, because if it's only a few of y'all, you'll have way more than you'll ever need if you go too big or go home. But it's also a lot easier to control the health of the tree in that nature. Keep it from ever getting waterlogged or dried out, and you can add any kind of nutrients or supplements to it that go directly to the tree instead of getting taken away by the rest of the dirt.
Right. All right. Yeah, I'll give that a shot. What are you doing other than the goats? What are you doing new this year? I was thinking, I'm one of the things I'm studying and I'm looking at is how to produce seeds and how to can. Those are two things that I'm really working on this year.
Yeah, start with your tomatoes if you're going to try to work the cannon, because if you screw those up, you won't kill yourself. So that's the first thing you want to start learning to can with is tomatoes. And as for seeds, that's about, with the seed thing, we're just now learning some of that. Like we just now kept some seeds up and did pretty well with them and started things from one of our own seeds, a couple of things, I think. But we're just now learning the seed thing ourselves. Some of that's even just leaving some and letting it just go to ripen. And then once it's ripened, that's when you get the seeds, because that's when they're the best, and you just dry them out from there. So there's some of that, and then some of it you got to let it go to flower, or bolt, and then it'll go to seed like that. And so the seeding is good. You of course heirlooms are what you want. And then look for things that are acclimated to your environment. Like if you can get with a local seed breeder to start your own plants and then get your seeds,
that's what you want to do, because that's already acclimated to the soil and the weather.
In Southeast Texas, Louisiana, field peas, like black-eyed peas and purple peas and fucking cayenne peppers grow like wildfire down here. Like you can just throw them on the ground and the shit'll. And another one I've had a lot of luck with down here that just grows out of nowhere. I don't even know how the hell we ended up with it last year because I didn't plant it. But we ended up with with butternut squash growing, like right at our front porch. Like, so find what grows easy in your area, man, and that is huge.
Yeah, no, that is the thing here. It's like really, it really boils down to like your environment, especially because you have a mostly warm environment. Like you don't ever get too cold. And like you said, you got 9 months of summer really here.
Yeah.
Or where you're at, right? Yeah.
Right.
So it's like the extent of your harvest, the length of time you can grow. If you get a greenhouse going, you're going to be golden. You can grow practically year round, all kinds of things.
Yep.
And again, focus on your perennials, dude. Things that come back over and over again that you don't have to replant. That's really, and it's the things like the squash, that'll go crazy. I forgot what it was. It might even have been in the squash family. One of the guys here in Central Florida, he does a food forest, is what he calls it. And look up food forests. They're amazing. They're pretty awesome. But he lets his squash just go wild, and it's ground cover in some of his areas, and you can't kill it. So I mean, that might be what you run into with that.
Yeah, I grow as much bush like product as I can. So like bush beans and all that, like, cause they weed themselves. You don't have to get out there and fuck with them constantly.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. It's it is weed. Like weeding is kind of a hassle. Like when we got a lot of rain here, you know, you go and yeah, there's a lot to that. But a lot of that is kind of part of it. You just kind of that. I don't cover enough. Like apparently, I've been told if I covered more, then I would have less weed issue. Like with ground, like with the hay and stuff like, or not hay, but straw. And even mulching some of your bed will keep it from weeding. But I kind of don't like my mulch in my bed because I've already got a lot of mulch in my mix.
yeah.
So too much acid breakdown will kind of tear up the plant. And so I use a lot of straw. That's what I try to cover with. I just don't do it thick enough.
All right. Well, all right, man. Plug away. Where can people find you?
Oh, well, dude, I'm my Rooster Wisdom on the Twitter, and that's where I'm at. But, I mean, not much of a plug. I like to shoot the shit, hang out. I'll crack jokes, and occasionally I'll put some stuff on and fun about chickens and growing things.
Yeah, we talk a lot about you know, planting and chickens and stuff like that. So I figured it'd be great to have you on so people could kind of like learn a little bit and kind of we could share our own experiences and learn from each other. So
I appreciate that, man. There's a lot of fun, and I don't know if I was educational to folks, but it was a good time talking. Sure.
All right, brother. Well, you have a good night.
You too, bro. I'll talk to you later.
All
right, thanks.
Said you're just a slave. All your good intentions took you to your grave. Your pride is how they killed you. With the flag you wave just like a fool. They promised you a mountain, gifted you a stone. They demanded that you throw it into your neighbor's home and then seize all that they worked for and give it to the throne just like a tool. Well, that's we all just stand in line and glorify new ways of being cruel. Seems to me humanity is not something that they're teaching us in school. They dumbs down all around, propaganda, their pollution. They set a cage up on the stage, a facade for all solution. They build a wall, block them all from this mental institution. It's insane. Now they're writing their own rule books and they're crossing all their T's. They're fashioning their people to all wear beggars' knees. If you want a clean drink of water, well, you must say pretty please. It's all a game. As we all just stand in line and justify these crimes done in our names. It seems to me authority and tyranny are both one and the same. Well, it's time to change the channel. It's time to set things right. Make them all rot with fear in their beds at night. Devour all their worthless souls and sacrificial right, just like we should. Of those who are to blame, and we'll stack them up like cordwood, watch them sizzle on the flames for good. Well, as we all just stand in line waiting for some kind of Robin Hood, our liberty will never be until our right to freedom is understood.